G'day guys, Dean here from Blog for the Blood God, and on today's episode I want to talk to you about one of the traps that I see a lot of newer players fall into when they enter the tournament circuit and the competitive 40k scene. And basically it's all about MathHammer and the way that you apply it on the tabletop. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time now, we're going to jump straight into the episode, but before we do, I just want to let you know that there's a new feature on YouTube called Super Thanks that allows you to make one-off donations to the channel. So if you find this video interesting, you feel like you got something out of it, and you want to say thank you, but you can't be asked going through the process of setting up a Patreon or any of that sort of stuff, a really easy way that you can say thank you is to just chuck a super thanks in. You can chuck us $1 here and there, whatever, but it all adds up and it allows me to continue making these videos with the frequency that I do. It allows me to continually invest in new equipment and new microphones and new cameras and new lighting and all that sort of stuff to try and improve the quality of the content. And it also goes a huge way to showing me what content you're interested in. So if you put a super thanks on this, I'll know to make more videos like this. Whereas if we don't get that feedback, well then it takes the channel in another direction. So I just want to put that out there at the start of the video, keep it fresh in your mind, and just any appreciation or any support that you guys do will be greatly appreciated. So with that being said, let's just jump straight into the video.
Blog for the Blood God.
Alrighty guys, let's get a conversation going about MathHammer. Now this is probably going to be quite a bit of a shorter video than what I normally do, and that's because this is a topic that doesn't really require a massive amount of exploration, but it is a topic that I get asked about a lot, and it is a mistake that I see a lot of players make. So I think it is worthwhile doing a video on it, even though it's not a particularly long or deep conversation. So basically what I want to talk about is the trap that people fall into when it comes to relying on MathHammer. So what I mean by MathHammer is the simple, doing some maths to figure out what your units should on average kill or what they should on average be able to do. And this can be something as simple as, how many 4-up saves should I make? Well, I should make half of them, therefore expecting to make half. Or it could be something like, more complex like psychic powers. Okay, well, what's my probability of passing it? It's a warp charge value of 7. And then what's my chance of them denying me? Well, blah, 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 working out the maths. And then basically using that maths to inform your decisions, right? That's what MathHammer is. But the MathHammer trap, and this is something that I think people wildly underestimate, is that it's something like 60% of the time you'll get the average result or better. But that means that there's 40% of the time that you're actually going to get worse than the average result. I'm not a statistician, but I can't remember exactly how that normal distribution works. But for example, if you've got 10 saves to make and you got a 4-up save, on average, you should pass 5 and fail 5, right? Because it's a 50-50 chance and you've got 10 to make, right? However, it's only like 60% of the time that you will actually pass 5. There's plenty of times where you'll pass less than 5, and then there are obviously plenty of times when you'll pass more than 5. But the problem with relying on that MathHammer and relying on those averages is you'll get fucked every single time you roll low. So for example, let's say you've got 10 Marines and they're shooting at 10 Guardsmen or something like that, right? And let's say hypothetically you're in rapid fire range, you're in Devastator Doctrine, and you've used some kind of stratagems, I don't fucking know. But let's say hypothetically, on average, 5 of your Marines is enough to kill those 10 Guardsmen, right? Hypothetically. And by enough, I mean on average. If you roll average dice, 5 of them should kill the 10. So what a lot of people do, and this is the trap, is they will allocate 5, and then the other 5 guys in your squad, you'll shoot them into something else, right? And the problem here is if you do that, and then roll low on those 5, and don't kill the target, that could have significant consequences downstream, in the later turns of the game, because now they have a couple of guardsmen that are able to, jump onto an objective, or, you know, the couple OBSEC bodies that might be able to be a real problem for you, or, you know, they might be able to screen out a drop or something like that. It can become a huge problem just having those insignificant models still alive. They become significant models at that point. So that's the trap where you basically go, okay, on average I should do this, so then you bank on that average. And the way to avoid this trap is to always over allocate. You know, one of my 40k mottos, one of the like the philosophies that I live by, is that overkill is underrated. You know, I would much rather just go all 10 of my Marines into your 10 Guardsmen, knowing that on average 5 probably does it, you know, but I go all 10 in and I fire enough bullets that I could have killed 30, you know, like I way overkilled, right? I would much rather that scenario than a scenario where I split my firepower and then, you know, the 5 that were supposed to kill those 10, they whiffed, they rolled low, or the opponent rolled really well with their saves or something like that, resulting in you only killing 3, you know, or 4, or whatever, and then you've basically fucked yourself, because now that unit that you were banking on killing has survived. And this is why a lot of top players that I know, they actually don't even really do Math Hammer. They rely on their intuition, they rely on, you know, their gut feeling, because that often allows you to make those judgments really fast, and often not necessarily more accurately, but more adequately, I'm going to say. Because if you do the Math Hammer, right, and then think you're allocating out perfectly, you will almost always under allocate, or you'll, at the very least, you'll always expose yourself to the potential for it to turn out to have been an under allocation, right? And we've all been in those situations where you're like, okay, I'm going to shoot this at that. On average, it should kill 5, and then you only kill 1, and you're just like, wow, I just got fucked. You know, this is really bad. Whereas what a lot of top tier players do is they identify the things that need to happen, and then they just allocate everything into it, regardless of the statistical probability, right? They just go, you know what? Those 10 Guardsmen over there, they're currently holding an objective. They're in range so that next turn they can move up and take my objectives off me because their objective's secured. And they're screening out one of my drops so that I can't actually deep strike down in that area of the table, right? So that one unit of Guardsmen is doing a lot of things. And even if one of those Guardsmen survives, they're going to be able to continue to do whatever it is that they're doing that's a pain in the ass, right? So what you do is you literally just look at them and just go, I'm going to just fucking fire my entire, you know, crazy powerful unit into those Guardsmen, because it matters that they die. Whereas spreading that damage out might not be anywhere near as important in that situation, right? So they just go, cool, I know that this unit is really powerful and it can kill a fuck ton of stuff, but I'm just going to put it all into those Guardsmen to get rid of them. And they don't sit there and work out, well, hang on, how many of them? Maybe if I split 3 of them off and shoot into that other thing, I can, you know, do this or that or whatever, right? A lot of top tier players, they just go, nope, I'm playing a game of, you know, like instances, you know, like in this instance, that Guardsman unit must die. And this other thing, yeah, it would be nice to take a few wounds off it, or it'd be nice to kill that other thing as well, but that other thing might not have to die. So if it doesn't have to die, and the Guardsmen do have to die, well then you're better off just going all in on the Guardsmen and killing them, and dodging the Math Hammer trap. Because if you invest too much in those probabilities, you're likely to then spread yourself thinner than you realistically should, because you've been tempted by that Math Hammer result. Now, I like to personally, when it comes to me, because obviously we all do this to some extent, right? But what I like to do is try to blend the two, where what I'll do is I'll look at the probability and I'll be like, okay, on average, 5 of my guys should be enough to kill it. So I'm going to allocate 8, you know, just to make sure, you know. And then it's like, sure, I might still whiff and it might not work, but at least I know that I invested heavier than would be normally required. So therefore, in order for that to fail, I would have to roll significantly worse than normal, you know? Whereas if you just invest the exact right amount and you roll slightly worse, then you've kind of fucked yourself. So yeah, that sort of rounds out the math hammer thing. And this builds into more than just the decisions that you make on the tabletop. This actually builds into list design itself. So another example is of people falling for the math hammer trap is they'll build something into their list where they're like, okay, let's use Honor the Prince, for example, right? The new Honor the Prince. So if you look at it, it's okay, your charge is 6 plus d6, right? So that means if you're deep striking that unit in, it's going to pass on a 3 plus, right? Because it's deep striking 9 inches away and you get d6 plus 6. So as long as that d6 is a 3 or higher, you're going to make it in, right? So people go, oh, it's a 66% chance that you're going to make that charge. And then if you layer on top of that, you go, okay, well, I also have the ability to CP reroll that charge. So it's actually a 3 plus rerollable, which works out to be like a 90% chance. So a lot of people go, oh, that's a 1 in 10, right? And they look at that as almost certain. And in a single game, in a single instance, 90% is amazing. However, if you look at a tournament as you're going to be playing 3 or 4 turns worth of deep strike every game, 2 or 3 turns worth of deep strike every game, and then you're also going to be doing 5 games, you're looking at 10 to 15 instances of using that. So the probability of you failing one of them at least is actually quite high because you're doing it so many times. So even though you're looking at it like, oh, it's a 90% chance, the probability of me failing is really low, you're actually looking at it the wrong way because you're going to do it so many times, the probability of you failing is actually really high. So building a list and making decisions in your list design, banking on that Honor the Prince charge always succeeding, is actually falling for the math hammer trap, where you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, more often than not, I'm going to be passing this, so therefore I'm going to design my list based around this working. That will, if you have that mentality, you will never win a tournament with it, because in order to win a tournament, you need to succeed consistently. Whereas if you do this, you'll succeed more often than not, but not consistently. You will fail on occasions, and if your list is built around it, when you do fail, that's going to cost you the game. So I'm a huge advocate for, obviously, that's not to say you shouldn't have things like Honor the Prince in your list, and it's not to say that you shouldn't, make decisions based on the fact that it's most likely to succeed, right? That, of course you do that. But what I mean by not falling for the math hammer trap is not building your list on that as a linchpin, You want to build your list in such a way that even if that Honor the Prince fails, you are still in a very powerful position. So an example could be, you take your Emperor's Children Terminators, you give them access to Honor the Prince, and now you're going to make that charge. But what you also do is give them the Black Rune of Damnation, and then also when you deep strike them, you make sure that you position them so that as many of them are in light cover as possible. Because that way, if you succeed, you've charged, you're no longer in light cover, but it's okay because you're in combat. But if you fail the charge, which you will do 1 in every 10 times, it's okay because you're in cover and you have -1 to be wounded, so you're very tough. So you've made a decision to put Honor the Prince into your list based on the fact that it's a really powerful and really reliable, method of achieving a charge. But you've also compensated for it, and you're banking on the fact that it will eventually fail. So always plan for those failures, and that's how you dodge the math hammer trap, is planning for the unlikely scenario instead of planning based on the likely scenario. And this goes for everything from list design all the way up to the decisions that you make on the tabletop. You want to make sure that you're making the best decisions and you're not falling for the math hammer trap, by expecting the most, reliable result. I guess the only exception to this that I will make, and this is something that I'm a strong believer in as well, is when you look at the tabletop, if you're in a position where you're going to lose, right? Like say your opponent got first turn and they did a massive amount of damage to you, and they've also positioned themselves really, really well, and you're just like, fuck, it is going to be a really hard uphill struggle from here. In those scenarios, that's when you can go, okay, I need some good luck to turn the tide. I need to turn this back in my favor. And that's when you would go, okay, this unit of 10 is going to split 5 into that, 5 into that. Because in order for me to turn this current losing game into a winning game, I need to spike high on both of those so that I can then kill more than I would normally, so that I can then get myself back in front. Now, this is important in games if you're going for the win, right? If you're going to try and win a tournament and therefore you need to go undefeated and you need to insulate yourself from that loss, then this is an important strategy. Whereas if you're hoping to go 4-1, well, in that case, it's okay to lose one game, and you don't want that to be a crushing loss, so you want to play conservatively throughout. Whereas if you're in a position where you're like, no, I want to win the event, I want to go undefeated, and I'm about to be defeated, therefore you might actually want to take a risk, and now instead of just getting a small loss, you're either going to get a huge loss or you're going to win. And if you're playing a singles event and that's what you're going for, that's probably the best strategy. So all of these sorts of things are very case by case. But yeah, I'm going to sort of wrap it up there. I know this is a bit of a shorter video, but I see a lot of people making these mistakes where they go, oh, well, I'm wounding on 4s, so therefore I only need to hit you 10 times to wound you 5 and kill you, so I'm only going to put in, 20 shots. And it's like, yeah, but you're only hitting me on 4s. So now you're expecting to get half of your hits through and half of your wounds through and half of my saves failed. If any one of those things spikes in an unfavorable direction for you, it's not going to work. So realistically, you should be allocating way more. So yeah, I see that happen a lot. And I think it's one of the things that costs a lot of people games. So I just wanted to sort of have that conversation with you guys here and just sort of give you guys a bit of a warning, I guess, or heed caution that always go for the overkill. Overkill is underrated, and it's way better to have had a situation where you've overkilled something than underkilled. So that's just keep that philosophy in mind, and I'm pretty sure you'll see that it improves your results. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've had any experiences like that where you've relied on the averages and you've been fucked by your dice. And let me know if you feel like if you could go back and had allocated more shots, if you feel like that would have turned the game in your favor. So yeah, I really want to get a conversation going below, give me some examples. And if you decide to adopt this mentality and then going forward you notice an increase in your results, let me know as well, because I'm really passionate about sharing my knowledge and helping out, the newer tournament players and prevent them from making some of the mistakes that I made when I was first getting more involved in the competitive scene. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks again to all my supporters on Patreon. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Cheers. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that wisdom useful. I hope you maybe can use it and get it applied in your games, and hopefully that helps you get some better results. Let's have a conversation down below about some examples that you might have of times where you've had the math hammer betray you, or times when you've had it be really, really powerful and influential. So I really want to hear your guys' thoughts, and I want to have a conversation with you guys in the comments below. As always, like, subscribe, all that good shit. Join up on Patreon. We've got a Discord there where we have really, really good in-depth conversations where I go back and forth all day. So feel free to join us on Patreon and Discord. And thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment, he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the Blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The Blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not one, not two, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.